Back to CryptosRus. I'm George. We're all George. And of course, the whales are accumulating more and more. Okay, I mean, this is hard to read, but just know that addresses between 10 to 100 has been loading up, and 100 to 1,000 loading up, even 1 to 10,000 loading up. The only category is plus 10,000 not loading up as much, although they did before. Okay, but right now you got across the board anything under 1,000. Those addresses are all stocking up. Raul Paul, who was a former Goldman Sachs guy, predicts that we're going to have 1 billion users flood into the market in the future, right? Right now we have a lot, but still nowhere close. Bitcoin has some exciting things going on, but Web3 has even more exciting things brewing and developing and will be used in the future. The IMF is about to send Argentina a $45 billion bailout. We know Argentina's their currency has absolutely collapsed. They just raised their interest rate by 300 basis points. It is up to like 81% because they are suffering from hyperinflation. Okay, they don't know what to do with their currency. They tried to come out with their own petro crypto too, totally failed. It's a clear example of a country that needs help, and getting a $45 billion bailout from IMF is really just a small, I don't know, lifeline. But you know what the IMF said? We're not going to give this to you unless you take an anti-crypto stance, meaning you will not be turning to Bitcoin. The IMF pulled the same stunt with El Salvador. El Salvador said, we need a help, right? And IMF's like, you need to get Bitcoin off your balance sheet and off being a legal tender. And I'm glad President Bukele just told them, go F yourself. That's what Argentina needs to do. Because what the IMF is doing, the IMF, if you think about it, is just a giant bank. As much as we hate central banks around the world from different countries, the IMF is even worse. IMF is the bank that bails out countries, okay? So when you have a country that's failed and they need a bailout, they go to the World Bank or the IMF. So it's the same premise. The IMF gets people hooked. In this case, countries, I should say, gets countries hooked. They give them a lifeline, but of course, they get them hooked, right? And that's why countries like El Salvador wanted to get out. Like, I don't want to be, chained up. I want to be and operate like my own country, right? And not have to listen to the IMF. But this is the IMF clearly throwing their weight around and telling everyone, hey, get off the Bitcoin standard, because obviously they're threatened by it. But Michael Saylor's like, why don't you just adopt Bitcoin? It just makes a whole lot of sense. I know there's still a lot that you have to work out. Maybe they have to redo their currency and make their currency backed by Bitcoin. But where do they go get the money to buy the Bitcoin in the first place, right? Maybe Argentina takes that $45 billion and throws it in Bitcoin and then make their currency backed by Bitcoin. That would be outstanding. But, IMF would probably not allow that. Okay. But, I mean, honestly, all these countries are suffering from hyperinflation. Why not? Why not? Embrace Bitcoin. Bitcoin will not inflate or hyperinflate like what's going on in some of these countries. You can't apply monetary policy to it. It is set in code. Okay? And no one could change that. There's no individual, no entity, no country that can change the monetary policy of Bitcoin or the inflation rate or the set supply. There's just zero chance any of these guys could do it. And that's what you need exactly. You need to take the human element out of it. You need to take the greed out of it. And that's why all fiat currencies fail, because of greed. That's what it comes down to. Human greed eventually causes everything to fail. Hopefully not humanity itself, but it probably will eventually. But every fiat currency ever created has failed due to greed, and because of greed, overprinting happened, and then eventually it died off. But not Bitcoin. Not Bitcoin, because you can't. But you know what? Today it was reported that President Biden's new communications director owns some Bitcoin. Between 50,000 to 100,000, so not the greatest amount, but at least that's like 2, 3, 4 Bitcoins, right? And because of this, he will not be able to participate in anything that's crypto related. But maybe he can get in Biden's ear a little bit and talk about all the good things about Bitcoin. And maybe he could get in Biden's ear and tell him to fire Gary Gensler, because apparently Biden's the only person that can fire him, not Congress, although Congress may be changing the laws whether or not there needs to be a SEC chair. Before I move on, I want to talk about privacy really quick. Are you concerned about your internet activity being monitored? Or are you concerned that centralized exchanges are tracking your location through your IP? If so, and you want to keep your activity and location private, then check out NordVPN. NordVPN helps protect your online privacy and security through their virtual private network spread across the world. Using NordVPN, you can hide your IP address, encrypt your internet connection, shielding your digital life from prying eyes like internet service providers, network administrators, crypto exchanges, and even from the government. NordVPN uses military-grade encryption and has a strict no-log policy to keep your data safe from hackers and cyber criminals. Plus, with over 5,000 servers in 59 countries, you can easily access the internet anywhere in the world while being protected. Whether you're at home or on the go, NordVPN has you covered. If you want to learn more about NordVPN, check out the URL in the description of this video. Right here, First Republic Bank, okay? Just when people thought the government bailed out all the banks and there's nothing to worry about, well, First Republic is still looking bad. Yesterday went down 50%. Today, still down 12%. And many are thinking that FDIC and or Fed will step in and take over ASAP. That's because their deposits are dwindling. People are pulling their money out. Why would you leave it in there, first of all, if you had any doubt about the bank and their solvency and whether or not they're going to be around in a month, right? Of course, no one would put their money in there. And of course, when banks are struggling, where else do you go park your money? Bitcoin. Well, at least for some, right? This new narrative is starting to play out. Bank failures, distrust in banks helps Bitcoin. And some people discard that, say, no, I don't think it's that. No, I mean, it plays a big part. I mean, this is pretty obvious. If you have more bank fears going on right now, Bitcoin starts going up, there is definitely a correlation. Billionaire investor Stanley Druckenmiller, who is a big Bitcoin bull now. He's like, I'm all in on Bitcoin. He's shorting the dollar because he does not agree with the Fed, and he believes that the Fed is weaponizing the currency, right? Galaxy Digital, one of the biggest, I mean, they're all over the place. They're into funds now, but into mining, into investments, right? Led by Mike Novogratz. They hold a ton of Bitcoin. They're about to push ETPs in Europe. So ETPs is almost the same as like ETFs, right? But it's basically like a fund that's backed by Bitcoin or some kind of crypto like Ethereum. So you got a lot of money in traditional finance with equities and bonds and everything else that's out there. We're talking about trillions upon trillions upon trillions. They're looking for easy ways to get into crypto. Even Grayscale has a lawsuit against the SEC and they expect to win by the end of Q3, which means even in the US, we will be getting some spot Bitcoin ETFs in the near future. SEC is being pushed not only by well, Gary we know got grilled recently, but not only by Congress, but by Ripple. They may be losing that case soon. They may be losing this case against Grayscale because they gave no good reason to deny spot Bitcoin ETF when they approved futures-based ETFs. So they're about to lose this. And they're probably going to lose the one against Coinbase too. I mean, they're being pushed by several large crypto companies, and Gary may be feeling the heat soon if all these end up being losses for the SEC, right? That's what we want to see. Right now, it goes unchallenged. We want to see some pushback and some wins. Even banks and financial experts are saying, buy Bitcoin. When there's bank failures and bank weakness, you go buy Bitcoin, right? It makes sense. And this quote also got me thinking too. Look at this quote. The safe haven signal will lead to a new crypto cycle, pushing digital wallets as on-chain savings accounts. The gap between treasury rates and bank deposit rates will continue to hollow out banks. That's interesting because treasury rates, the bond rates, are way higher than a savings account, right? So that will actually pull deposits out. That I actually didn't. It makes a whole lot of sense, but I didn't connect the two before. But you think about it, that's another reason why banks are seeing their deposits dwindle, because why hold money in savings when you're getting like 0.025 from a bank when you could get like 5% from a treasury bill, right? And weak balance sheets leading to another round of mass migration to money market. So basically, there's a lot of reasons why banks are struggling right now. Rates are high, so there's no business, and now people are pulling their savings out, and they also don't have any liquidity, right? So again, this is a strong case for Bitcoin. Today is the last Friday of the month. April kind of flew by really quick. There's a huge expirations for options and futures, $4.6 billion. Now, we haven't seen this affect markets much recently. I remember once upon a time, these expirations cause a ton of volatility. It's sometimes good, sometimes bad. After expiration, you see Bitcoin shoot up, or sometimes you see it go down beforehand, right? These days, not so much, but still, the volume for options and futures exploding right now.